We hit 60. That's exciting. Thank you. Um, I'm excited for this one. Bruno is one of my favorite characters in any media ever. If you haven't seen Encanto, pause right now and go watch it. It's really good. He is another character who has some additional conditions, but I think even with taking those into account, he displays certain traits and behaviors associated with autism, and I've personally find him really relatable, and I know other autistic people who say the same thing. So we're going to go into the traits he exhibits, which seem to indicate autism in addition to his other conditions. But first, also, we got to talk about Bruno. Um, he has been explicitly stated by the creators to be meant to exhibit symptoms of obsessive compulsive disorder. He has his rituals he does. We see this throughout the film. Knocking on wood, he avoids stepping on cracks, throwing salt and sugar behind himself. Even his gift is the only one that requires him to perform a ritual for it to work properly. Nobody else's gift has this. Peppa can just make a storm, Isabella just waves her hand and flowers grow, Antonio can talk to animals immediately, Bruno has to do the whole thing with pouring out the sand in a certain way, lighting I think it's 5 little fires. So these are all meant to signify the ritual behaviors which come with obsessive compulsive disorder. And having talked to a friend who also deals with OCD, the way he ruminates on his visions and how they have negative outcomes can also be a symptom of ruminating that comes with obsessive compulsive disorder. He also struggles with depression because of his isolation and rejection by others and his family. And additionally, the creators have said, Jared Bush particularly, have said, Alma, the abuela, once she learned about his gift, kept pressuring him to look into the future for any threats and negative outcomes the Encanto could face, which is part of the reason he is so downcast a lot of the time, because he has mostly been asked to look for possible negative outcomes. Obsessive compulsive disorder and autism have a lot of symptoms overlap, and since OCD is the condition which has been confirmed by the creators, I wanted to talk about it a little bit in the beginning. I don't have OCD, so I can't speak from experience, but this is what I have heard. And even after going through the symptoms he exhibits of OCD, I think there are other traits which could indicate autism in addition to obsessive compulsive disorder. To start, the famous sequence in We Don't Talk About Bruno, where we have this series of statements Bruno apparently made to these people, which they took to be predictions because they eventually came true. However, as has been discussed elsewhere, it is entirely possible these were just observations he made. For instance, she was keeping her fish in a very small bowl. Goldfish kept in small bowls tend to die. And there's also, there's nothing other than the fish in that bowl. Fish needs rock and plants and whatnot to have a healthy environment. And Osvaldo, the man in the pinstriped shirt, we see him eating junk food a lot, which can lead to weight gain. Or the priest, a lot of men go bald. It's possible Bruno noticed a receding hairline. I know for me, one of the things that I've really had to work on is making, shall we say, unfiltered observations about people, because it's hard to understand why simply stating a fact is considered rude. So I remember as a kid, one memory that sticks out is one day I noticed that my mother was starting to get a double chin, and I have her permission to tell this story. And so I just pointed it out to her, and she got annoyed, which I think is fair, and told me that wasn't something I should point out to people. So I could see I think for me personally, I can see, oh, I would just say that stuff. Um, Especially like in the case of the fish, like if it's an animal welfare thing, like, oh, that fish is gonna die if you keep him in those conditions. Oh my gosh, he died. Bruno can tell the future. He caused the fish to die. Or like I don't really know. Yeah, it some of it certainly seems like it's easier to blame Bruno for things that he was just pointing out than acknowledge, because yeah, a lot of men go bald. Male pattern baldness is a thing. Or the eating junk food thing. So it's possible that he was just Bruno was just making somewhat unfiltered remarks because he wouldn't think that it was rude to simply state a fact. That's certainly something I've done on multiple occasions, uh, and then been confused why people get upset. So I think it's entirely possible. And yeah, he does say, oh, he's creepy and his vision killed my goldfish. But he's very sarcastic when he says it, Bruno is. I think the idea of them being more just unfiltered observations that were taken to be predictions is actually supported by his first meeting with Mirabelle. You're very sweaty. That's just observation. It's not even. I think there's maybe a more, I don't know, hang on, normal, I guess, response. Like, other characters in this situation usually say something like, it's going to be okay, or something, and he just says, you're very sweaty, which is also something I would notice if I was in this situation. I'd be like, your hand's too sweaty, I can't hang on. So he's just stating his observations in a somewhat unfiltered manner, and even at the end when he talks about what actually he meant at Peppa's wedding about trying to make a joke to ease the tension, let her know it's okay to be nervous and feel her feelings. Again, I have a lot of experience with making jokes to ease the tension that just get not received in the way that I think they will, and people getting annoyed or being offended. And I can't imagine if I could, like, a person who was known to be able to predict the future in this situation, that would get astronomically worse if I was saying things like that. Like, oh, you look nervous. I don't know. Even just saying break a leg. If Bruno says break a leg, then suddenly everyone's freaking out because what's going to happen? Someone's going to break their leg. Or, yeah, self-deprecating humor. Or I'll think we're having humor. It's like something I'll think is banter turns out to be considered very rude, and I do not understand. So a lot of these things people blame Bruno for sound similar to things I've said in situations I've been in, just made worse by the fact that they know he can predict the future. And also, it's at the time, the diagnosis of autism wouldn't be a thing, so he'd just be that quirky guy. We also know it's not just due to his isolation because, again, according to Jared Bush, and I found this from his Bruno's Wikipedia article, he was already introverted. He was already kind of uncomfortable around people, socially awkward, and he was already gravitating towards the rats. He's not Antonio. He can't talk to animals. That he's just gravitates towards these rats, and he's like apparently treats them really well. They seem to really like him. He trains them. You can see in the corner of that picture, like he trains them to act out telenovelas and sports game shows, what have you. He cares for them really well. In some ways, it seems like he's maybe caring for them better than he's caring for himself in his current situation. And that, again, gravitating more toward animals is a pretty common autistic trait. I tend to feel better around animals myself. Not rats. It's kind of a long story, but I have a bit of a rat phobia. But like dogs, birds, um, mostly dogs and birds, some cats, horses. There's a few different kinds of animals, but that's another one where it's like, and he talks to them, which they're the only things he has to talk to. So that's not necessarily just an autism thing. And yeah, we see him being very awkward with Mirabelle right away, just kind of standing there staring at her for a minute and then just leaving abruptly. He doesn't like it when she gets too close. He's holding that broom out. And also she's asking him to have a vision, which he's uncomfortable with. He's somewhat awkward in conversation. We see later in the movie when he's getting hugged, he never returns the hug. He stiffens up, which, to be fair, could again be an isolation thing. He also exhibits some of the posture thing we talked about with Doofenshmirtz, where he tends to slouch a little bit, and also, depending on the situation, he stands like this quite a bit. He does the T-Rex arms again, as we've seen with other characters. So those posture things also, I think, seem to indicate autism. And he has a hard time expressing affection for his family. He doesn't really know how to engage with them as well as he wants to. And that's something that, I mean, I did a whole video on feeling awkward with expressing affection, not always really knowing how, being worried about how it will be received, realizing that something that I thought was friendly or helpful wasn't, and maybe made the situation worse, and not really being sure how to fix it, which seems to be something Bruno struggles with as well. Or even he knows that things he says get misinterpreted or maybe not received in the way he wants them to be received, and he doesn't seem to be aware of how to fix it, make it better. And that's also something that has been hard for me historically. So it's something I relate to with this character a lot. Yeah, I think that about wraps it up. There's not that much to talk about. It's just one movie. I like this picture of him with the horse. Just more awkwardness from Bruno that I just find extremely endearing and also relatable. I think actually, even just maybe having some trouble with limb coordination, not being able to get off that horse. That's another trait. So yeah, in summary, I think Bruno exhibits a lot of traits associated with autism. I've heard from other autistic people that they really relate to him, and I personally have found him really relatable as well. And then, of course, he's also meant to have obsessive compulsive disorder, and so I think he's just a great, well-rounded character for a lot of just to relate to for a lot of different conditions and forms of neurodiversity. So I wanted to give a shout out to Bruno, shout out to the creators of Encanto, John Leguizamo, his voice actor, and everybody. He's a really great character for, I don't know, anybody. So go watch Encanto if you haven't seen it already, and even if you have, go rewatch it. It's really good. The madrigals, by and large, are really, really interesting, and obviously Bruno's got OCD and autism covered, but then Pepa deals with all these mood swings, and there's generational trauma, and just all kinds of different neurodiversity displayed in the madrigals. It's really fun to see. We don't see her as much, but shout out to Dolores. Her power is just hearing things that everyone, like most people, can't hear, which makes her also very relatable with sensory issues and everything. So yeah, Encanto, for any reason, just go watch it. It's really good. Bruno's a great character. And yeah, with that, thanks for 60.